A Nottingham woman called Danielle Summers thought she was bad and untouchable. Things like revenge or retaliation were of no concern to the 32-year-old mom when she set up men and lured them to a house where she then ordered masked men to rob their victims. Now, police say Danielle had a gang of masked men specifically target two vulnerable men, where she acted as bait. Now, Danielle, who's a mom, had spoken to the men online via dating websites, and she spun a convincing tale and stories, acted as though she liked the men. Now, as she spoke to her victims, Danielle began to tell the men that she was a mom, but told them stories of skipping meals and also having no money to turn the lights on or put gas on the meter, so she asked the men for money. And of course, these vulnerable men who had learning difficulties and whom were on dating websites looking for love and companionship readily agreed. Now, the two victims then arranged to meet Danielle on separate occasions at an address she provided in Chiwell. But when the unnamed victims had arrived at the address, they were yanked inside by Danielle and then sat in the living room. Danielle and the men spoke for a few minutes, but then Danielle would leave the room, pretending that she was either going to the toilet or going to fetch a drink. With the victims left alone for no longer than half a minute or so, that was then the masked men then entered, at least 3 of them. Now, they were armed with bats. Police say the victims were then confiscated of their items. The masked men, as I said, were armed with bats, and the victims were told if they did not give up the money, their kneecaps would be shattered. Their money and the bank cards were then taken, and the two victims were robbed roughly a week apart, which left them afraid, terrified, and even more vulnerable. When the crime was reported to the police identified a suspect, and he was to face a trial. However, halfway through the trial, on robbery charges and imprisonment, the judge ruled that there was insufficient evidence, and he was then let go. However, Danielle Summers' crime was captured with enough evidence, such as text messages and also the online chat logs. She was arrested and she had to go to court. Ultimately, Danielle Summers was found guilty of 2 counts of robbery at Nottingham Crown Court this summer. Her defence team asked the judge for leniency, as she is a mum. However, Judge Tina Dempster jailed Danielle Summers for 5 years. Now, the judge stated, "You were the law, you acted as the bait, and it must have been obvious to you when you first met these men that both were vulnerable. Both gave evidence at the trial, and one of them needed an intermediary due to his learning difficulties. You took advantage of vulnerable people with the sole concept of robbing them for their money." Does the crime match the sentence? Let me know your thoughts in the comments about this. And as always, stay safe.